Hey, it is Thursday, April 27th, 2017. It's the day one of the 2017 NFL Draft. This is 3000 NFL Mock Draft with just me right now, Kenneth Arthur of fieldgoals.com. The Seahawks are pick 26, and right now on the clock is pick 25 for the Cleveland Browns, who traded down earlier. Their pick is in, meaning that the Seahawks move needs to be coming shortly after I start talking. Again, if you're just tuning in, this is Kenneth Arthur. We will be joined by Rob Staton shortly after the Seahawks pick. Rob just wants to watch the pick and not have to talk about it for 5 seconds, and that's understandable, but hey, I ain't got nothing going on in my life. So that's what we're going to do, is that we're going to sit here and we're going to talk about the pick, and we're going to see what happens if they do make the pick. We're just waiting for the Browns. I haven't seen if it's been revealed what the Browns will be doing here, but I see now that the pick is in, and another player off the board that maybe the Seahawks would have been interested in. I don't know what we're doing in terms of tipping picks, but I don't think it really matters. The Browns have selected Jabril Peppers out of Michigan. So Jabril Peppers, a guy who, is a versatile player, definitely a talented college player. Some of the Seahawks technically could have been linked to, especially as a kickoff returner. That gives him one more tool. But Jabril Peppers is not someone often linked to the Seahawks. So, not much going on there. But, when we look at the players that are still on the board, this is the reason to have suspected that the Seahawks would be trading down, which is that there are a lot of good players still available, including Forrest Lamp, the guard out of Western Michigan, Western Kentucky. So Forrest Lamp still available. There's just so many guys still available. Let's just recap some of the most recent picks. Starting with pick 17, the Washington Redskins getting Jonathan Allen. A lot of fans on Twitter, I saw Seahawks fans seeing that Jonathan Allen slide from a potential top 3 pick, and his shoulder issues with both shoulders causing him to slide down out of the top 15. He goes 17th overall. And at this point, before Jonathan Allen goes off the board, you're looking at the board and you're saying, geez Louise, there's so many guys here still available that look really good. And then there weren't. So Jonathan Allen goes pick 17 to Washington. Adoree Jackson, another versatile player, one that can do special teams and play different positions on defense. Adoree Jackson of USC, he goes to the Titans at pick 18. O.J. Howard, who some had in the top 5, falls to pick 19. He goes to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the tight end out of Alabama. An exceptional athlete, certainly an exceptional player. Just one that, as a Seahawks fan would say, was Jimmy Grahammed by Lane Kiffin. Jimmy Grahammed, because they didn't know how to utilize the tight end, apparently. So O.J. Howard didn't have the biggest numbers, but he was a huge, big-name recruit. And then, he goes to the combine. He puts up huge, big numbers. And then, just sort of didn't put up, big numbers in college. And then he slips to pick 19. It could be because the class of tight ends is so good that, that there's not what teams didn't feel rushed to pick him. If Tennessee didn't pick Corey Davis 5th overall, maybe they take O.J. Howard 18th overall, but perhaps they just considered it to be too much of an overkill to take, 2 offensive players like that. So they went with Adoree Jackson, and Howard falls to the Bucs. A great weapon for Jameis Winston. I like the Bucs next year to make the playoffs, potentially go deep in the playoffs. And then pick 20, Denver Broncos were on the clock, and the Broncos were expected to be a team to take an offensive lineman, be one of the teams ahead of Seattle that would take an offensive lineman. And sure enough, they took one, and it was the one that we've talked about the most on 3000 NFL Mock Draft, that being Garrett Bowles. So Garrett Bowles off the board at 20. And then Gerard Davis, linebacker out of Florida, goes pick 21, a player that I like a lot, and Rob likes a lot and could see becoming a star in the NFL. Charles Harris, defensive end out of Missouri, goes to the Miami Dolphins at pick 22. Evan Ingram, we were talking about the tight ends. And when I say we, I mean me And when I say we, I mean me and you, because you're listening. We're in this together. Evan Ingram, tight end of Ole Miss, goes to the Giants. That's 2 tight ends right there at pick 19 and pick 23. Gary and Conley going pick 24. So there was a lot of, I don't know, you call it controversial, or, it's just a guy who is, under some investigation right now. And I guess the Oakland Raiders, they took him 24th overall. They did it sounded like a lot of teams did their research, and apparently the Raiders felt we've done enough that we feel comfortable taking Conley. So Gary and Conley goes to the Raiders, and then it's the Browns at 25, taking Jabril Peppers, leaving the Seahawks on the clock. But will they trade it? That's the question. It's a potentially true that they've made a move, and I haven't been updated yet, and people are screaming at their computers, at their iPods. You can't listen to this on an iPod, I don't think. But man, look at all the players that are still available. You're talking about Kevin King, the cornerback of Washington, of course. You're looking at, Reuben Foster is still available. I mean, this is a guy who, as a linebacker, Rob had maybe in his top 5 at some point. He's just an extremely great linebacker, but potentially some attitude issues that came through at the combine. I don't know, that could be just a bad day, and then the diluted sample. So Reuben Foster is still available, and that could be great. That could be great value for any team. And I don't think that just because the Seahawks are the team that just they have Bobby Wagner, so inside linebacker, not a need. But any plan, if you said that Ray Lewis was available, and I'm not comparing Foster to Ray Lewis, but if you said Ray Lewis was available right now, you wouldn't pass on him. So, if you feel that there's a great inside linebacker or a great player at any position, a great quarterback available, you wouldn't pass him at this position. So that's what it comes down to for them, is just deciding how good he is. Ryan Ramczyk still available, the tackle out of Wisconsin. Taco Charlton, defensive lineman out of Michigan. Dalvin Cook, running back out of Florida State. Not going to be a target, I don't think. David Njoku. So he was the second tight end for a lot of people, but Evan Ingram went above David Njoku. And, we're still waiting here. I'm still waiting personally for the Seahawks pick. And then we'll be able to talk about it, or if they're going to trade. It still doesn't say pick is in on my feed, but some of the more players that are available, Malik McDowell, TJ Watt, TJ Watt's the guy that I said on the last episode of 3000 NFL Mock Draft that I'd like to see the Seahawks take. I think it'd be an exciting pick. I think he's got, he's a great athlete. He's got a lot of, just everything, athleticism, production. Even though it was one season, the family bloodlines, like, I don't think that I think he's being downgraded because of the Watt name, not upgraded. If his name was something else, you would just look at the fantastic season he had and the fantastic combine he had, and just, I think he'd be a top, maybe this is where he deserves to go. I don't know, because I don't think teams necessarily are looking too hard at that kind of stuff, but I think that TJ Watt would be a really good pickup. Some of the other players, Chidobe Awuzie, the cornerback out of Colorado, is still available. Tack McKinley, Cam Robinson, Zach Cunningham, Tyus Bowser, Tre'Davious White, Budda Baker. And Marcus May is a name that I had heard thrown around with the Seahawks recently, and that was a shock. That was a surprising name to hear, but and there we go. The Seahawks have traded their pick to the Atlanta Falcons. And this was reported on yesterday right here at fieldgoals.com. Tell your friends to tune into http://fieldgoals.com to get news days before it happens. All right. We reported on this trade not too long ago, yesterday or the day before, that the Seahawks and Falcons had a trade in place should it come down to it. And just as I'm naming off all these names, they were probably, and I'm just guessing here, but it's probably true, they were listening to this. And, as soon as I turned on the mic, Pete Carroll and John Schneider, they turned on their radios and they said, let's listen to this podcast or this video feed on the radio. That was the first thing they did. Then the second thing they did is they heard me list off all those names. They called up Dan Quinn. And then Pete said, hey, DQ, don't disqualify this phone call because I got something to say to you. I want to do that trade. So the Seahawks and Falcons have made a trade. Last year, the Seahawks made the exact same trade. They moved down from 26 to 31 last year to take Jermaine Ifedi. And in that move, I will have to look up what they got in return. But, they got Nick Vannett. So they got the 3rd round pick in that move. Will they get a 3rd round pick again out of this one? Maybe. We'll find out shortly. But the Seahawks move down, meaning that I am on this hot mic alone. I wish I could take phone calls. I would take questions. If you've got any questions, just send them in to Twitter or I guess on Field Goals. You can find us on Twitter at Field Goals, and I'll take the questions, or you can send them in. But the hype train has slowed down. If you're watching the draft, then you know that the Falcons have selected Takk McKinley, linebacker out of UCLA. So let's go ahead and just go back and talk about some of these other picks that the Seahawks didn't make. And we'll sort of just discuss some thoughts there because, oh, baby, I got all the picks right here. Pick 1, Cleveland Browns, Myles Garrett. This was, I wrote an article about this over at sportsonearth.com. You can check it out. I wrote that this evening, just as it was, the news had come out, then Garrett would be the pick. This is a no-brainer. And Cleveland, some people say the Browns have no brains. So that means that it would have been, it is their pick. It's a no-brainer. That means if you got no brains, you'll make the pick. So that's what they did. And Myles Garrett goes to Cleveland. This guy's got it all. So it should be an interesting marriage here for the next 4 or 5 years and see what happens with Garrett and the Browns. Number 2, Mitch Trubisky. The Chicago Bears and the 49ers make a trade? Are you kidding me? The 49ers, John Lynch, he does a good thing here for his team, which is he picks up, some really solid extra picks, a couple 3rds and a 4th, just to move down one slot and take the guy that he wanted anyway, which was Solomon Thomas. And even still, I think the Bears, people say they got fleeced, but I don't know. So many 3rd and 4th round picks flame out that if you believe that Mitch Trubisky is the best quarterback in the draft or a quarterback that's going to be really good for you for a while, fudge, yeah, dude, take that deal, make that deal. I don't care. If you think that, because it's, if you think that the 49ers were going to make a different deal, say with the New York Jets or the LA Chargers or whatever, sure, make the deal, give them their dumb extra picks and put them in there. And I especially like that. I like that they have the foresight to know that Mike Glennon is no kind of future. And then and then also just to have someone in place for next season, meaning that Trubisky, who only has 13 career starts, can take a year to learn the pro game and learn, Chicago's offense and everything like that. Pick 4, Leonard Fournette to the Jaguars. This is a pick that you could have, talked about a year ago and it would have made just as much sense. It's a great move for the Jaguars. I don't like running backs early. So let me get that out of the way. I don't like running backs early. So let that be known. But Leonard Fournette is at least a special running back, I guess. He's the type of guy that does seem to be there, he seems to be on that level of an Adrian Peterson or, an Ezekiel Elliott or whatever that's going to be at least a star. So, for me, it's like if you're going up that high, be a star, be a future Hall of Famer. And I'm going to put that tag on him because I don't give a fuck. I'll do it. I'll put that on you. I'll put that pressure on you. Don't worry. I'll put that pressure on you. It looks like the Seahawks did pick up a 3rd round pick in that deal with the Atlanta Falcons. And the Bills have selected Tre'Davious White. So another cornerback off the board at 27. So that's one more to monitor, is that the Seahawks, they had plenty of guys on their board that they were comfortable taking. But it's just the same deal they did last year, which is just we're going to move down from 26 to 31 and pick up an extra 3rd. And now they have 4. So or maybe the, So yeah, they get the third and a seventh rounder. So, not only did they get another third, but they also just picked up a seventh rounder. And when you hear John Schneider talk about the draft, he talked a little bit about how he liked the players that were going to end up in the seventh round or be undrafted. So you can look at that from that perspective and say that extra seventh round pick just secures them one player that they won't have to fight for on the undrafted free agent market. And I believe there's going to be several players that they're going to be fighting pretty hard for. So just to have that one extra giant bonus that they can give, and we say giant because to me and you and to the players who will get it, oh man, that money is going to be freaking awesome. Not giant to the money makers out there like Doug Baldwin and Russell Wilson, but hey, 10K, get out of here with 10K. Okay, I'll take that 10K. So that's more money, less picks, one more pick that they can use on a player and have them on that seventh round contract. So, good deal to get up to third, and now if they have all these third round picks, what kind of moves are they going to be making in the second round? What kind of moves are they going to make in the third round? What kind of moves maybe will they make for next year? Are they going to take all those players? Are they just going to use those picks on players and fight it out? Maybe. It's interesting though, because if you're talking about those 4 third round picks, you got a first, a second, and 4 thirds. That's 6 players. And the Seahawks, it's almost guaranteed that any player drafted in the first 3 rounds is going to make the first, an initial 53-man roster. It rarely happens that someone drafted in the third or second round doesn't make that 53-man roster. So if the Seahawks are really going to add 6 players on days 1 and 2, can they support that? Can they support 6 rookies, just in that pool alone? Because last year they did have 14 or 15 rookies on the team, but then you got to have some of those guys come back. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do. And I would be somewhat surprised if they held on to all of those picks. They can't move up again now, but I would still just be somewhat surprised if they aren't, planning on moving up again in the second round or the third, where they're going to get into that position where it's okay, we've got pick 58 and we've got pick 26. Now they've got pick 31 and they've added pick 95. So instead of say 26 and 58, maybe this is their move to have 31 and 40. So, that's not too shabby if that's what they plan on doing. Maybe it's not what they plan on doing, but I could see it being a thing where they plan on picking, again shortly in the second round. And that's, they might trade down again from 31. It's certainly within their MO. And man, if they just trade down again, get out of the first round entirely, that means Rob just had the night off and I'm just sitting here and, we're just not getting any news as of yet with the Seahawks, but a trade is definitely news. So, but there's still a lot of good players left. Moving back to, that guys going back to that first round, Corey Davis at pick 5 with the Tennessee Titans. A bit of a shock to me. I think I even mocked at some point Davis at pick 5 or in the top 10, but you just couldn't get a read on where the receivers were going or who was liked the most. And Davis was injured, so he wasn't doing the testing, so that made it a little bit more difficult. But clearly Tennessee felt pretty comfortable there. Jamal Adams going pick 6 to the Jets. I had thought maybe the Jets would go defensive back because of Todd Bowles and his career, and as a secondary coach. Mike Williams going pick 7 to the Chargers out of Clemson, another receiver off the board, and I don't fully agree with that move, but so be it. We'll see what happens. Christian McCaffrey going pick 8. He goes to the Carolina Panthers. Another move I don't really agree with. Sure, I'll take it as a Seahawks fan. I don't know if I see that move making the Panthers a threat again next year. I think it's going to take, a little bit of time for the McCaffrey pick to pan out. If it does, he's not at the level of an athlete prospect that Reggie Bush was. And Reggie Bush, the second overall pick, was a very dynamic player at times in his career, but I think you would, reconsider taking him in the top 10 if you could. And I think Reggie Bush is a better prospect than McCaffrey. So that's, to me, is a little bit of a questionable pick. John Ross, the Washington receiver, going to the Bengals at pick 9. It's an interesting move just because the Bengals did need receiving help, but, now you're talking about, I just don't know how many successful teams, franchises continuously take, receivers early like that. They took AJ Green in 2011, and now they've got Green and Ross, and they've got an interesting looking offense, certainly with Dalton having a lot of weapons at his disposal, but then it's still Dalton. So, what if Patrick Mahomes or Deshaun Watson become really good players? Would you not question taking John Ross over a quarterback? I mean, I liked John Ross as the best receiver in this class, and certainly one who I thought was being underrated, and the injuries and stuff were being overblown in terms of, I don't know, maybe it's not overblown. He could all fall apart, but it's still, to me, it's a tougher pick for me, not because so much of John Ross, but more so because of the Bengals. At pick 10, the Kansas City Chiefs trade up for Patrick Mahomes for the quarterback, and I think it's an obvious fit for Andy Reid because Patrick Mahomes, he's mobile. The Chiefs are running that same sort of offense that the Seahawks are running. So they're looking for someone who's similar to Russell Wilson. And I think if Mahomes' draft stock hasn't gone up to this pick 10, certainly if he was more of a second-round pick, I think Seattle would have been interested. So Mahomes makes a lot of sense for Kansas City, and I think it's good for the fact that he's not going to be counted on to play this season because he's going to take some time to be able to, get a grip on the pro offense. So I think it's a good pick, and, then they're in good position to do it. The Saints take Marshawn Lattimore, and that was the first cornerback off the board, setting off the cornerback market. Obviously, the Seahawks were in that market and still continue to be, but that's the first one that went off the board. And we're just waiting here for the Seahawks to make their picks, but Taco Charlton going 28th, and then we're going to have 29 and 30, and then we'll see if the Seahawks are still on the board. The Cowboys were the ones that took Taco. So Taco to the Cowboys, and then Cleveland, and then Pittsburgh, and then Seattle, baby. And then we're off and running with some Seahawks talk. And then we'll be joined, if you're just joining us, me and you will be joined by Rob Staton after the Seahawks make their pick. We'll talk about what the pick was. And I mean, shit, the fact that it's going to go up in the podcast, and then what? People are going to listen to Kenneth Arthur babble on forever about some bullshit, I guess. And this is the segment called Babble and Bullshit. Number 12, Deshaun Watson, quarterback of Clemson. The Houston Texans traded up for Watson. Hands up. So, and I think Deshaun Watson was my favorite quarterback in this class. The Cleveland Browns decided not to take him. They were the ones that were at pick 12 that traded down to 25 with Houston. And now the Browns own the Texans' first-round pick in 2018 because of it, and their second-round pick in 2018 because of taking on Brock Osweiler. Can you imagine if the Browns hold on to Osweiler? He comes in next season behind that all-pro offensive line. He gets like Corey Coleman and, Gary Barnidge. And what if Josh Gordon's reinstated and he just comes out and has a really big season? I've been ragging on Brock Osweiler for a year, and I don't think he's a good player, but that would make me laugh at least, and I could use a good laugh. That would be funny to me. Pick 13, the Arizona Cardinals. This is an NFC West tidbit. Select Hassan Reddick, defensive end out of Temple. Another one of Rob's favorites. Hassan Reddick, moved up the boards steadily over the last few months, and, now it's all the way to being the 13th overall pick in the draft. So it's another really. So the Browns have traded back, and just to be clear here, the Browns traded back into the first round, and the Browns selected David Njoku, the tight end that we mentioned earlier. And it's interesting. I wrote a article for Sports on Earth that was the bold draft predictions. Obviously not all of them were right. Some of them based on my opinions, like, the fact that I didn't think Christian McCaffrey, I said it's a bold prediction. Christian McCaffrey doesn't go in the top 15 or something like that. And of course he went 8th overall, but I also said that there would be 3 quarterbacks taken in the first round, and all 3 would be traded up for. And that was true. I mean, unless another quarterback goes off the board, that is true. It's interesting that the Browns traded up for a tight end, and they didn't trade up for say Deshaun Kaiser or Davis Webb. So far we don't have another quarterback off the board. I also said that there would be 3 tight ends taken in first round, and now with Njoku off the board, that is now true. So that's interesting. I said that a team would trade in from the 20s into the top 10, and that happened with Kansas City trading from 27 to 10 to take Mahomes. So, hey, that's pretty cool. Number 14, the Philadelphia Eagles selected Derek Barnett, defensive end out of Tennessee. Highly productive, just not a great athlete at the combine, and that's going to be a debate people may have. And then finally in the fact, 15, Colts took Malik Hooker. John Gruden did not like this pick. And you hear John Gruden say a lot of nice things about players, but he was not that nice to Malik Hooker. Just said he wasn't a very good player and that he, didn't take good routes. Do you say routes or routes? Say so in the message boards and on the comment thread, and leave a 5-star review on iPhones. So it's interesting that Malik Hooker, was once linked to the 49ers at pick 2, goes all the way to pick 15 to the Colts. And then pick 16, Marlon Humphrey, the second cornerback off the board from Alabama. He goes to the Baltimore Ravens. That set off an Alabama run of 3 players out of 4 being from Alabama. But we are just edging in ever so closely to the Seahawks pick. Just to recap the last 5 picks, Jabril Peppers goes to the Cleveland Browns at pick 25 with that pick they got from Houston. Takk McKinley goes to the Falcons at pick 26, what they traded up with Seahawks for. Tre'Davious White goes to the Bills at pick 27. The Bills, another team, they were the ones, of course, that traded down with Kansas City. The Dallas Cowboys select Taco Charlton out of Michigan. And the Browns traded back into the first round to take David Njoku, the tight end. So just to reiterate, and the Steelers have just made a pick as well, and that's that'll be tough for old K-Dog here to admit to who the Steelers took. But just to recap what the Browns have done today, because they have made 3 first-round picks. They have added Myles Garrett to their defensive line. They have added Jabril Peppers to their defense, at secondary, maybe linebacker. So they've added Peppers. I mean, if you're adding, and plus adding Garrett and Peppers, adding arguably, 2 of the top 5 defensive players in college football last year, really good athletes. It's impressive, and we'll see how it works out. Obviously Cleveland has some talent, but they just need to get better on defense. And then getting up David Njoku, it's a different kind of weapon because, I mentioned Gary Barnidge earlier in my Brock Osweiler diatribe, but, obviously he's not that great of a player and, wasn't productive, and you want to get some future there. But you look at it and you say that it's still a team that has a great offensive line. They got better over the offseason with their offensive line. They just needed more help at that receiver and, tight end positions. So they've got Corey Coleman coming back for his second season. Maybe they'll get Josh Gordon back. And now they had David Njoku. But to move on to the aforementioned pick for the Steelers, TJ Watt. I mean, guys, this was my guy. This is the guy that I said I wanted the Seahawks to have. And they bypassed him for this trade down. So they better blow my socks off. And they better blow my socks. So that's my promise to you. The Seahawks will blow my socks if they don't blow my socks off with this, this pick that they're going to make, supposedly. And I'm not even guaranteeing that the Seahawks will make a pick because they are continuously effing us with the idea that they might take a pick. And they're probably going to trade down. Well, it's just a matter of who wants who and where we wear. Will Forrest Lamp still be there? So many questions up in the air. I got to send this tweet about TJ Watt. If you're into tweets and you're into field goals, then you go to @fieldgoals and say, "Oh shucks." There's a tweet preview. And man, if the Seahawks make a pick, how exciting will that be? I mean, these TV feeds for me are so far behind. Plus, it's not even just the feeds. If you notice that, like, it'll be like, oh, the pick is in, and it'll say that for 4 minutes, and then, but if you look behind, the clock for the next team is still running. So the clock for the next team after that is still running, and then they could just get to it faster, But the Seahawks get that pick in, baby, or make a trade, and then we can, talk about what the Seahawks have done tonight. We can welcome in Rob Staton of Seahawks Draft Blog. This is what I'm saying. We already know pick 30, and they haven't even announced pick 29. So get this shit together, because the Seahawks will be on the Seahawks are on the clock, but they aren't even. There's the 2 picks ahead of them aren't even officially announced yet by Goodell, and the Seahawks are on the clock. So that's what we really are hoping for, is for something to happen and for the NFL to get their asses in gear. So after that, and plus we're going to find out the pick on Twitter before Goodell says shit. So, and if you're out there and you don't like swear words, I'm so sorry. This is 2017 and people swear, and I'll swear to you that if I cuss every now and then, it's only out of pure, that's how I talk. And, sometimes you just got to own up to it. I am stalling for time so hard that you wouldn't even believe it. But, David Njoku, oh, wow, he's the Browns. I knew that 5 minutes ago. All right, Goodell, why don't you get the hell in gear? Goodell, get the hell. The Steelers aren't on the clock. Their pick is in. They've taken TJ Watt. Okay, get that right. And let's move on to the Seahawks, who are certainly on the clock. Their time is certainly ticking and taking down. Players on the board. Oh, there's quite a few. Forrest Lamp. Well, that depends. Yeah, so Forrest Lamp. Right. Where did the Packers pick? Oh, they traded. Forrest Lamp, Reuben Foster. I mean, these are the same guys that we mentioned, not too long ago. Zay Jones, that's Mel Kiper's third. I disagree. Kevin King, if you were a King guy, hey, you can still get Kevin King at 31. Cam Robinson and Ryan Ramczyk. I prefer Ryan Ramczyk. Would not be happy with Cam Robinson. That's my personal assessment. Budda Baker, he's out there. You can have yourself a Budda Baker time. He's still available. Safety out of Washington. Chris Wormley, defensive tackle out of Michigan. I don't know about that. Marcus May, safety out of Florida. Players can be had, and that can mean a trade down. That can mean a pick. Here we go. The Seahawks are making a trade. Ian Rappaport saying that the 49ers are about to come back in to pick number 31 in a trade with the Seahawks. So the Seahawks have, according to Ian Rappaport, traded out of the first round. They've made double duty on their deals. They did this in 2014, but they double dutied out with the Vikings, and they double dutied out again with the Detroit Lions. So they moved back before they made the first pick, and that year it was Paul Richardson. Just to look at the 49ers picks, the 49ers next pick is pick 34. So this is a move down of 3 picks. It's a first round pick instead of a second round pick, which has contract obligations. But overall, now the Seahawks, if they're moving down into this position, they'll take the entire night to really reassess the entire board. The only team between them and the next pick after that, obviously, the 49ers would have to make their pick at 31. Then the Saints have pick at 32. And the Browns would be the first pick on Friday at pick 33, meaning that the Seahawks, won't be picking, until Friday. But, the good news is, that you make deals, and the Seahawks have not, first of all, let's just say this. The Seahawks have not used their original first-round pick since 2011 with James Carpenter. And now, if you look at it, the only times they've drafted in the first round since they took Bruce Irvin in 2012, nobody in 2013 because they traded it for Harvin, nobody in 2014 because they traded down for Richardson, nobody in 2015 because they traded it for Graham, and then in 2016 they traded down and they take a Feedy. So in the last 6 seasons, they've used 2 first-round picks, one on Bruce Irvin and one on Jermaine Afidi. They just really don't give a goddamn crap about the first round. So they get a 4th rounder from the 49ers in order to make this deal. Obviously, the 49ers moved down earlier with Chicago. They picked up extra picks in that deal. And San Francisco trades a 2nd and 4th round picks to Seattle, move 31 to take a player the 49ers were considering at 2 and 3. So Schefter says that whoever they're going to take is the player that they were planning on taking, or not planning, but were considering at the top of round 1, which could indicate DeShone Kizer, I guess. It's Reuben Foster. I mean, that has to be Reuben Foster. This has probably been said. But it looks like, because all morning the talk was Reuben Foster, sort of being their favorite player there too. But adding another 4th round pick, the Seahawks have 5, and just from Rob Staton, who is not joining us, the Seahawks have 5 picks between 90 and 111. I'm not a math guy, but that's 22 picks. That means that in a range of 22 picks right now, the Seahawks own almost 25% of those. So the Seahawks have 6 picks tomorrow on Friday. But as I kept reading off the list of names available, it just made sense that they would, continuously just like, well, we can get 5 of these guys. I didn't like any 5 of these guys. And they can either move up again. They can move that. They can improve that pick 58. They can improve that pick 90 for sure, or 95 or whatever, because they now own picks 90, 95, 102, and 106. So they can continuously keep moving around. And they're just shuffling these things like one of those game boards that has pieces that shuffle around. This is a good analogy. This is a strong analogy. That was such a strong analogy. You know what? The Seahawks left us holding the gun or the bag or whatever. And so I got to get out of here. I got to jet and talk about other things. Thank you for listening to a complete Blue Balls show where nothing happened. And I feel super bad for the people who had to listen to this. Me just rambling on nonsense, acting like an idiot, talking about what happened, talking to myself, talking to you. And I appreciate you keeping me company because it's such sweet sorrows. Overall, what's my grade for the Seahawks today? Incomplete, obviously, but at the same time, A++, and at the same time, F. Grades are dumb. You can't get a grade, especially if you don't make any picks. But did they do the right thing in moving down? I'll give them a thumbs up and 1 thumbs down for trading down, and give them love for ups. That's it for this episode of 3000 NFL Mock Draft. This has been an edition where nothing happened. Join us next time where something probably will happen.